All righty. So thank you all for joining us. This is another episode of Embodied Memories of the Bay, narratives of African diasporic spiritual traditions. And I'm super excited to have our guest with us here, Mr. Kendrick Freeman. And we're going to jump right in and learn more about him and his relationship to African diasporic spirituality. So to start, can you please tell us your full name?
Kendrick Freeman.
Kendrick Freeman. Welcome, Kendrick.
Thank you.
What do you prefer to be called?
Oh, Kendrick.
Kendrick? Okay.
Kendrick is good.
Awesome. So what pronouns do you use, Kendrick?
I'd say he or him.
Okay. And do you agree to be part of this research study?
Of course.
Awesome. And which city do you live in?
I've been in the North Bay. Right now I'm living near Sonoma, California.
Okay. And when did you move to the Bay Area?
1974.
Wow. So you've been here for a while.
Yeah.
Right? You've been here for a while.
Yeah.
So is there, and I look forward to kind of learning more about that. I know you have a wealth of experience and history here in community. So I look forward to delving into that. But before we really go into it and go deep, is there something that you'd like to ask me before we get started?
No, I'm just, it's my privilege to be here and talk to you.
Oh, I tell you, the privilege is mine. I'm super excited. We're really going to be in for a treat. So this is an autobiographical, right, oral narrative. And so we're going to start from the beginning, right? And I want to start with first asking a little bit about your background, your history, and then we'll bring it forward to the present. And I know we're going to talk about some awesome art that you shared with me, and we're going to talk about what that means to you. So starting from the beginning, what year were you born and where were you born?
I was born in Bronxville, New York in 1955.
What? I didn't know you were from New York, Kendrick.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm from Brooklyn.
All right.
I don't know if we ever did that had to come up. Oh my gosh. From Bronxville. That's awesome. So where did you grow up? Did you grow up in Bronxville as well?
I was in Westchester County until I was about 12. And my father worked in Midtown in Manhattan. And he changed his job when I was 12 and we moved to outside of Hartford, Connecticut.
Oh, wow.
And I spent my teenage years outside of Hartford. And I was in Boston for a minute. I started college in Boston and then I took a year off. I was a young man and didn't really have a direction. And I came to California and ended up coming back out to San Francisco in '74 and going to school. And that's where I was already a drummer. But my first teacher was a great jazz drummer, still alive, named George Marsh.
Okay.
And he connected me with a Ghanaian teacher. So my first contact with that music was to play in an ensemble. And then in the 80s, I was around the Congolese scene with Malonga and Tito Sampa and Bemba Pangu, Regine, Thomas Bukaka. They weren't having students perform with them, but they would let you play for class and study with them. And I particularly appreciated Bemba. He was very quiet. But when he was working with the dancer, she couldn't move without him catching her. He was really, as far as being a lead drummer, I was happy to sit there. You know how it is. It's sometimes students want to play something they think is impressive. They don't want to play the bell.
Right.
But I was happy to play the bell because that meant I could sit next to Bemba and observe. And he taught me a lot just by watching him.
Okay.
All right. So, and then after that, in 1987, I think Blanche Brown came to Sonoma State University where I was accompanying dance classes. and they let me join them, and they realized that I could actually hang, and started inviting me to come down to play at 24th and Mission.
Mm.
So I did that for 5 years, and I worked with Blanche's company from, I think, 87 to like 92, 93.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Um, let's see, at that point, I met Maria Concordia, Ogumbemi, and she took me and some other folks to New York to meet her papa, who lived up in the Bronx and had a house, and I got involved with that. I got initiated into that situation.
Okay.
Um, we can talk about that a little bit. I don't recommend trying to maintain one's practice at a distance like that.
Hmm.
I think that my knowledge would be deeper than it is if I had been living, say, in New York and able to go
Right.
up there all the time and be around Manon. But nevertheless, it
Mhm.
was a good thing for me, and
Okay.
eventually led to me meeting Danielle Breville, who is now living in Virginia, but was living in Oakland. Um, my wife is from Haiti, and
Mm.
I was on the street when the earthquake arrived
Wow.
in 2010. We were visiting. My brother-in-law has an orphanage in Calfu, at the
Mm.
south end of Port-au-Prince, and I had taken some lessons with Danielle. My friend Marcus in New York introduced me to him, and
Right. Marcus Schwartz.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and it became really clear that Danielle was somebody that I could learn from. And so the fact that it turned out that he was living in Oakland was fantastic for me. So we had we still have I still see him every Friday. We're working on translations and songs. But I did a 10-year apprenticeship with him every Friday, sitting with him and playing.
Mm.
Yeah, which was fantastic. And he pulled me into shows and working with Rawa Tulime and playing Carnival and doing various performances and so on. So I always have to mention Danielle Breville. Um,
Hmm.
I would not be where I am without my work with him.
Wow. I mean, this is really, for Haitian folklore aficionados, you just named all these heavy hitters,
Oh
right?
well,
Whom you've had the blessing to be able to
yeah,
work with and apprentice under.
yeah,
So, it's hot already. This is hot. This is hot because from the West Coast to the East Coast, right? You've had a really thorough training. Thank you for that, for that overview.
hmm,
And so what I want to, and you mentioned, right, at some point that you actually did initiate into, was it a Haitian voodoo house?
yeah. Société Fleur d'Or, run by Mano Cadet, um,
Okay.
and that was
Okay.
yeah.
So you did do, this initiation. And about how old were you when you did that initiation?
Oh, I was not young. This was 93,
93? Okay.
so
Okay.
almost 30 years ago.
Almost 30 years ago. Okay.
So what would that make me? I would have been,
In your 20s,
no,
30s?
no, probably more like in my 30s.
In your 30s.
Yeah.
Okay, right, in your 30s.
So,
So I want to back up a little bit
hmm,
and just to learn, because I want to talk about, like your experience within Haitian voodoo, but I'm curious about where you grew up, right? You grew up primarily, in the Bronx area, in the Westchester, and then some parts in Connecticut. But did you grow up in a faith community, right, in your early years? And if so, what was your experience like?
no, this is a good question because growing up in white culture, I've discovered that as I've gone along in my life, I look back at that time and I see that there were some things that were missing.
Hmm.
And um, so I'm very grateful to have encountered another way of looking at the world. Um, I was young hippie guy. I think I was on a superficial level, I was a little rebellious, but I think what I was really looking for was something deep and old.
Okay. Okay. Mm-hmm.
And so therefore, when I started to encounter people who really had the discipline to be connected to a tradition, that it absolutely spoke to me.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make
Mm-hmm.
sense? Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And that's yeah, it's a very poignant characterization, right? You were looking for something deep and old. Talk to us more about that.
Well,
Deep, the depth and
yeah,
the history.
my parents they were good people. They had heart.
Mm-hmm.
My mother in particular was artistic. I think she would have liked to have played the piano, but she didn't really have the opportunity as a woman, at that time.
Mm-hmm.
So she raised a family. But I think she was the person who introduced me to music.
Mm-hmm.
And but there was absolutely nothing going on uh, in terms of overt spirituality or dance or connection to culture. That just wasn't talked about. I mean, even to this day, I don't really I have two brothers and a sister, and I really don't talk to them about this part of my life. They know me as a musician.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think they would understand what it is um, to be connected to another community that looks at the world the way that we do.
Okay.
You know,
Mm-hmm.
um, it was just foreign to them. So I really it was important for me to come to San Francisco where there was other opportunities and other cultures. I had a Chinese doctor for 30 years. I got my mind opened up.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Thank you for that. It's so important to, just to give us a sense of the arc, right? So it sounds like you had this really um intertwined with your spirit, with your musical training, right? It seems like that spiritual, right? That spiritual awakening, right? Or
Mm-hmm.
that
Mm-hmm.
yearning. It seems like that really kind of drove your maybe your entry into the into this style of music,
I
right? It
think I
sounds
think
as though.
I think that's very well put.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. And because for everybody it's different. For some people it's all about the music, and then it happens to be spiritual music. But it sounds like for you it was both. It was both that coalesced. So thank you for that insight. Um so now, right at present, what are the various communities or groups that you are a part of, right? You mentioned being, your parent, your family knowing you as being a musician. You mentioned, being, a part of the Voodoo House, being a Voodooisant. Well, what are all the various communities and groups that you would say that you are a part of?
Well, I spend most of my time as a working musician. I play drum set. The folks that know me in the Vodou community probably haven't seen me play drum set, which is I spend a tremendous amount of time working on that. So that's interesting.
Okay.
And then the folks that know me as a drum set player really don't know that I do this other music too, that I play Haitian traditional music. So there are probably at least two musical communities that I'm connected to, and they don't always overlap.
Mm-hmm. 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 And what is that like for you?
I'd say it's fine. Um, I move back and forth between them
Mm-hmm.
depending on the situation.
Mm-hmm.
Far as the language inside the drumming goes, even sometimes very good jazz musicians, um, don't always understand some of the phrases and the speech that's inside of Haitian drumming. So
Mm-hmm.
they find it, for a while, for example, I would play some Afro-Cuban music, some Afro-Cuban jazz, and I would put some Haitian language into it. And on the break, the musicians would say, you don't sound like other people. And I would apologize. I'd say, yeah, no, I'm sorry. I'm really not that deep in the Cuban thing. And they say, no, 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 it's good. You sound different.
Mm.
So without realizing it, I was starting to figure out what my own voice was.
Wow. You see, and I'm a linguist. So I'm loving this talk about, but I'm not a musician, but I'm a linguist. So I love this talk about the language, right, of the drumming. And so it's almost as though, like you're speaking, you all are speaking together, you're having this discussion, so to speak, in this during when you're playing, and then they hear your Haitian accent. Right? So they're
Yeah,
like, where is this? You sound a little different,
yeah, yeah,
right? You don't have the Cuban accent like
yeah,
some of us have. You don't have this jazz accent, but there's something else that they're detecting. That's beautiful. That's beautiful.
yeah. As you say, it took me a while to accept that. I think
Mm,
for an artist to find their voice, it can take a long time.
yeah, yeah.
You have to sift through a lot of things to finally figure out what's your own and to have the confidence to play that way.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. What do you think? What is behind it? Because I want to be, let's kind of, dig deeper because you're an
Hmm.
artist. And
Hmm.
I think, there are going to be lots of people watching who are artists. And so, what do you think is behind that, like fear or apprehension about, really trusting your voice, hearing, searching, finding your own voice and sharing it? Like,
Well,
what was behind that for you?
well, I think I'll speak for myself. I think I was looking for how I was going to contribute and feel accepted into the community.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
And what did I have to offer? And when I was a new student, I was simply trying to copy what my teachers were putting out there,
right.
which is fine, but you don't want to stop there. You eventually want to find out what your own thing is that you can contribute. I mean, I think that's what gives meaning in life. We don't do this just for ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
You know, um, myself, I'd like to see that as a human being, I'm making progress. I don't want to be a great player and not be a decent human being.
Okay.
And you know,
Mm,
that's important to me. To make every interaction with people as positive as it can be,
mm-hmm.
and that requires that we try and be objective about ourselves. And I mean, I think that's maybe the connection with spirituality, because if you're only going to do a spiritual practice for your own ego, it's not going to change you.
Mm, mm,
But if you do it as a form of self-examination, then you have the potential to grow. And I think that's what I'm about. As long as I'm alive and I can make forward progress, both as a musician and as a person, then I'm okay.
mm-hmm. Oh, awesome. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you for sharing that.
Mhm.
Um, I wanted let's talk a little bit more about your your involvement in the voodoo faith community, right? More broadly. You talked to us, you mentioned that you were, you met that you met was it a mambo who you met? And then you became introduced to the tradition that
No,
way?
no,
No?
this is a ungan,
Okay.
Mano Kade. his societe originally came from Croix de Bouquet.
Okay.
And he was trained, I believe he was trained as a chemist or as an engineer in the
Okay.
United States. So that was his public persona,
Okay.
right? But he was well known in New York. I know, I believe John Amira and Frisner Augustin were both members of that house.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh.
There was drummers that were connected to him that had also initiated at his place.
Oh. Now see, I didn't know. I knew Fisner, God
Yeah.
bless the dead, but
Yeah.
I didn't know that I didn't know that connection.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I met him a couple of times. Um, so what attracted you to it? Right? Now, I guess the question is, had you started playing Haitian folklore music before you initiated?
Yes. A-
Okay.
And it's a good question that you ask because um, I was working probably with Blanche Brown's company at that time,
Mm-hmm.
and I saw myself as a musician.
Mm-hmm.
But at a service one time, one of the spirits came right up and got in my face and asked me what I was doing there.
Mm,
And I said, I'm a musician. And they said, no, you're here for some other reason.
mm,
So then that made me have to confront what was really going on with me.
wow.
I wasn't just, in a way to be able to respond, I'm just a musician was very safe.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And
Mm,
they're saying, no, 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 there's something else going on here for you to look at. So um, I think that probably is what started my interest. And once again, I'll thank Maria Concordia for taking me to New York um, and getting involved in that way. And like I said, I went through a couple of initiations, but never had in my mind to take the Asson. I never felt comfortable with that idea.
okay.
Both as being a white guy outside the culture, I was a little gun shy of that. And also being a musician, I knew that that's what I wanted to do with my life. And I couldn't imagine being, I mean, I would look at people who were doing that work and they're busy.
Right.
You have all kinds of people coming to you at all kinds of hours with
Mhm.
you need to help them. And I thought to myself, I'm not going to have enough time in my life to even think about that. So I was content to practice in my own way, and the way that I support the community now as best I can is to play.
Mhm. Mhm. You know, it's so this is making me think, right, of like the certainly drummers have an enormous role in voodoo ceremonies. And there are some who are initiated, but there's also many who are not, right? Who
Hmm.
play. And so I wondered, this thought just came to me. Um, what's the difference? Is there a difference? From your perspective, in drummers who are initiated versus those who are not.
Yeah,
Maybe a little bit of a controversial question, but
no, I think there is.
mhm,
You could probably argue both sides, but I think there is. I think there has to be some understanding. For example, let's take something as simple as the règlement,
mhm,
right? The drummers, even that they don't have a spiritual training per se, they have to be able to understand the songs and how the songs sit on the rhythm. So if
mhm,
a song starts, the drums have to come in the correct place.
mm,
The song very often starts first, as you know.
Mm-hmm.
and then the drums have to catch it and set it up in the correct way. So you have to have some understanding of how things are, what the sequence of events is, and who you're singing for.
Mm-hmm.
And then from there, I think Danielle used to tell me, he said, it's going to be some work. He said, but I can show you everything you need to know about the drum. He said, what's going to be harder is for me to teach you how to feel about it.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
And he said,
Mm-hmm.
all the spirits are inside my drum. And he says, so when I play, I have to make sure that they're happy with what they're hearing from me.
Mm.
That was his way of getting me to think about that. So,
Has that been your experience
oh
now?
yeah, Dambala is not the same as Ogu.
Mm.
Oh, people, there's all this different energy that you're working with. So
Mm-hmm.
I consider myself a student. I'm still very much a student. Every time I sit down to play, I try and pay attention. I try and see what's going on in front of me, and I try and blend my sensitivity with that and try and support what's in front of me.
Mm-hmm.
That's, I don't know if that answers your question.
Oh no, absolutely. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. It's just it's you know, you have such an important role. And certainly I've learned from you, you know, the song when we did the for Rara Tulene,
Mm,
when Mambo Portia Jefferson did the service to honor Black Kaima,
mm,
you know, and you led us in the beautiful song,
mm.
you know, this beautiful song. So that's something that, you know, I knew there's something more going on with you. You know, for you to know that song, and then also the vibration, right? The vibration that you're able to carry with the song. That only comes from having a relationship.
No, I would agree with you. And
Right. And I felt that vibration when you were
so
singing it.
so this to me, that makes me happy because if I can feel it and I can communicate that and it's true, then
Mhm.
it's going to be of help to somebody. It's going to be useful to someone. That's all.
Absolutely.
That's all I want.
Yeah. And it was a blessing to me. It was a blessing. So
Thank you.
I thank you. Um, and so we've kind of, so talking again about your role in the tradition, you spoke to us, you know, you touched on that. And so I wonder, you know, do you have children or other young people who you may be mentoring in the tradition, in this
I,
faith tradition?
not really. I've got a daughter of my own, but unfortunately, her mother and myself separated when she was 12.
Okay.
Um, she used to fall asleep in dance class in her stroller
No.
and wake up when the drum stopped. Um, and she remembers some of the melodies. She doesn't have Creole, but she knows some of the melodies. But in terms of actually working with somebody younger, I'm not right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And how does your faith influence? And we've been talking about, this has been the theme the whole time, but I'm going to ask you directly, right? How does your faith influence your creativity and artistic expression, right? What have you been inspired to do because of your faith?
Oh, I look at the world very differently since I've come in contact with this culture. Um, Going back to Danielle's statement about how to feel
Mm-hmm.
about this, the different aspects of it, um, I look for that. If I have a feeling about something, it automatically now is kind of connected to one aspect or a loa. It makes me think about how that might want to come out.
Mm-hmm.
in the music. It might not even be on the drums. It might be a song. I love to sing, so it might be a song. Um, but I think that at this point, the feeling of it is kind of with me all the time.
Mm.
And sometimes that's actually the inspiration for the music.
Mm.
And it can go the other way too. Sometimes music comes to me that comes from some other place. It's not connected to this tradition, but particularly if I'm sitting with drummers, it's definitely. I mean, I don't want to just be somebody who's sitting there playing the drum who doesn't have a feeling for what's happening.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just a mechanical thing, right?
Right.
It's always for somebody else. It's not about me.
Mm-hmm.
I had the privilege of loaning my drum set to Billy Higgins on a few occasions. Billy was a great jazz drummer.
Wow.
And I'll share with you a couple things that he said to me that were, I only had maybe 15 minutes to sit and talk with him, but sometimes 15 minutes can turn your head. And he goes, music doesn't come from us, it comes through us.
Mm.
He said, if it came from us, there'd only be a few people that could do it. He said, and that's ridiculous. So we're like radio antenna. We pick it up, it comes through us, but I don't always feel any sense of ownership. I feel like it doesn't belong to me,
Okay.
you know? Um,
Mm-hmm.
and then the other thing that he was asking me about was, well, so are you one of the guys in your area? And I said, Billy, you'd have to ask the other musicians what they think about me. I don't know. But I said, he says, what do you do? I said, I play the jazz quartet and I play some, Latin jazz. And I said, and sometimes I have to put on the tuxedo. And I said it with some apology in my voice, right?
Mm.
Like it was a commercial thing to do. And he caught that in half a second. He went, ah, ah, ah. He said, it's what you bring. It's what you bring. So where are you in your heart and soul? That's what he wanted to remind me of. And I always thank him for that because that meant that he's living in that place and that's where he comes from.
Mm-hmm.
He was reminding me to do the same thing. So this is, the blessing of being able to talk to your elders
Right.
and have them straighten you out about some things.
Yeah. And the same way, that you've been sharing so generously lessons that you've learned. I know that you're going to be a blessing to those who are listening to this and watching this interview, right? There's going to be so much that resonates with them and is going to support them and cheer them up on their journeys as spiritualists, as musicians watching. So um as creative people, as artists of any kind.
Hmm.
So thank you for sharing that. Um, and I want to ask now, like, are there any specific or favorite memories about practicing your faith in the Bay Area in particular? Like, what is it about the Bay Area?
Hmm. Well, my perception of the Haitian community in the Bay Area is that it's pretty small.
Mm-hmm.
If you're in Miami or New York or Montreal, um, you have a lot more opportunity. And
Mm-hmm.
I think on a certain level, that's a disadvantage in that when there's a little bit of competition, it actually can keep you humble.
Okay.
Sometimes when the community is small, it's easy to think that one is a little more important than one is.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you put yourself in a larger pond, you realize maybe where you really where you really stand in terms of your learning. I don't worry about that stuff too much. I just consider that it's all about learning. I like somebody said at one point, I don't have to be the big dog. I just want to be at the party.
Okay.
So there's that. Um, So in terms of the Bay Area, I don't think there's anything that's particularly um, different about it. I see that the kind of transformation that goes on when you do spiritual work is an internal thing.
Mm-hmm.
And you know how it is. There could be two people witnessing the same thing at a ceremony, and they could take away two different things from it.
Yes, 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 yes. Aibobo.
Yeah.
That's such a powerful insight. I want to hear what you have to say about it. Because again, I may be coming from a different perspective on it. But I just said that to somebody this week. Talk to me about that. What's the significance of that to you?
Well, Khadidra, I'd like to believe that as human beings, we're born open.
Mm-hmm.
We're not conditioned. And depending on what culture you're in and what people you're around and what negative and positive things exist in your life, you get conditioned. I see spiritual work as confronting some of that. And it's not so much that you're trying to attain something that is difficult as it is sometimes eliminating stuff that's blocking you.
Mm.
Yeah, you have to do, I believe we all have work to do.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think to be paying attention is really one of the keys, is to be in touch with what you feel. And so when you're in a situation where ceremony's happening, that's a container for that work.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody's going to reflect what they have inside of themselves,
Mm. Mm-hmm.
right? Depending on
Right.
what happens there. So, my godbrother Winston in New York, he's from Trini.
Okay. I was
And,
about to say Winston. I'm thinking of the Trinidadian actor Winston Duke,
no,
right?
this
He
is
was played in Wakanda. I automatically, well, he's Trinidadian. He's from Tobago.
yeah,
Very handsome young man.
yep,
And he's from Flatbush, Brooklyn. That's all.
okay, yeah, yeah.
So you have your godbrother who's Trini.
Yeah, and even when we came out of the Jevo, and we talk about it later, some of the things he said made me realize he took away certain things from that,
Mm-hmm,
and I
mm-hmm,
took away other things from that, and I love this guy. I'm we've been in touch for 30 years now, and it's been fantastic.
mm-hmm.
But I respect that he has his own way of looking, and that's actually helpful.
Right. Yeah. You know that. So when you thank you for that perspective.
You're
Um,
welcome.
Part of what I really love, one of the things that among many that I love about Vodou in particular, and African diasporic religions in general, is the is the importance that we place on the individual walk, the individual path,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and individual revelations,
Mm-hmm.
right? So that when I think about, again, that example of people being in the same place, right, at the same time, but having vastly different experiences. And also the reason why we don't talk in Vodou, that's something my spiritual mother always said. In Vodou, we don't talk,
Mm.
right? And there's a reason for that. It's because your spirits will reveal to you what you are able to understand.
That's perfect.
And so if I start talking and saying, this is the dream I had, this is what I did, this is how it should be, then that could throw you off of your own journey,
Absolutely.
because you're not going to have the same experience that I have. You may have more, right? You may have something that's more intense, or you may have something, you're going to have what's meant for you. And so I think that's what I love about it, right? That ceremony, because I was just speaking to somebody about that, somebody who a close friend of mine, and he said, well, how come you didn't tell me all of this in the beginning? Or I said, welcome to ADR's 101, right? It's not, I have to, everything, it's not one size fits all. So I have to use my discernment along each part, of this ritual, in order to discern what's meant for you. So even if I have, in the beginning, I may have an idea, okay, this is a bath, you need to do a bath. But I may not have, it's not going to all come to me what needs to go in the bath until I'm doing it.
Mm-hmm.
And then spirit will guide me into what to put in the bath for you.
Mm-hmm.
Right at this time. And so that's something, that I just love about it, is that we've got to be open because we're constantly divining, right? We're constantly receiving revelation.
That's it.
Right? We're constantly receiving revelation that we've got to be open to. So yeah, it's such an important and humbling, right? And humbling part of the faith. So now I want to ask, right, again, in the Bay Area, are there any specific places that are, or locations that are especially important to your worship?
Oh.
And to your faith practice?
I'm always moved by nature.
Mm-hmm.
There's some places where there's some trees, that there's a certain feeling in a grove of trees sometimes, or maybe by the ocean. Just where there's not a lot of other human noise.
Mm-hmm.
And then also when I'm together with people, it doesn't have to be in ceremony. That's one of the things. I mean, I live in the North Bay, and there's really no community up here.
Mm-hmm.
And I've talked to my godbrother about this, and it's not that we can't be paying attention and do our work and make progress on our own, but you get so much support from the community. And as I said earlier, if I had to do it over again, if I'd realized the amount of benefit that I could have gotten by living closer to my godfather,
Mm-hmm.
I might have done that differently, rather than being on the West Coast while he was on the East Coast, because he's gone now.
Mm.
He's been gone for 10 years.
Okay.
And I don't regret any of it. The benefit that I've gotten from having been in that situation is fantastic, but I think I'd have certainly more knowledge, both about Vodou and about myself, if I'd been able to go and be around him more. He was very direct. He'd say, "You're smart, you know a lot, but only thing that counts is action."
Okay.
Right? So he put it.
Haitians know how to work you.
Yeah, he absolutely. He put it right where I needed it. So yeah.
Oh wow. Well, so before we close this portion of our interview, is there anything that you'd like to share? Anything else you'd like to share about your walk overall?
No, I see myself as just wanting to stay connected to what's happening as much as possible, and to be able to play that. That's my contribution that I feel lucky to be able to do. I feel very lucky to have stepped outside of the culture that I was born into, and to open up my mind even a little bit. So I don't feel like I have anything special. I think all of us have something deep inside of ourselves that we can communicate, and Vodou gives us a place to do that.
Okay. Awesome. Well, thank you so much. This has been really, really a treat and a pleasure to talk to you. And
right back to you.
this has been great. So we're going to pause now before we talk more about that lovely musical composition
Okay, great.
that we're going to talk about, but we're going to pause it for now. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you.